Without wasting any more time, I just want to introduce our dean and the dean of the school, who I hope you have an also opportunity to ask questions while he's here this morning. David Hempton was appointed dean at Harvard Divinity School in July of 2012. Before joining the Faculty of Divinity in spring 2007, he was university professor and professor of the history of Christianity at Boston University. And prior to that appointment, he was professor of modern history and director of the School of History in Queen's University, Belfast. He's a social historian of religion with particular expertise in populist traditions of evangelicalism in Europe, North America, and beyond. He was HDS Outstanding Teacher of the Year in 2008, chosen by our students. He is the author of many articles and books, and you can read a lot about that on our website. He has research and teaching interests in religion and political culture, identity and ethnic conflict, the interdisciplinary study of lived religion, comparative secularization in Europe and North America, the history and theology of evangelical Protestantism, and the rise of global Christianity in the early modern period. It is a pleasure to welcome Dean Hempton, and you can join us now.
Thanks, Laura, welcome to HDS. It's wonderful to see you all here. I have two favorite days, I think, at HDS. One is I host a breakfast over in Jewett House, which is a brick house across the way for the incoming students in September, late August. We had 130, 140 students there where are we now? Just 2 or 3 months ago. So that's a great day to see this wonderful array of new talent entering the school. And this is another favorite day to see the talent that's about to enter the school. At least that's our hope. So welcome. Thanks for your interest in coming here and for making the effort to visit with us and find out more about who we are and how we can help you fulfill your aspirations. I encourage you to make the best possible use of the time you have with us. Today's panel presentations, conversations with faculty, staff, and students are great resources for you to get to know our school and its programs better. You will hear from the faculty about the degree programs and from students and administrators about student life and the very many services available at HDS to support our students. This afternoon you'll be able to visit the Center for the Study of World Religion, just over across the road as well, which is a wonderful resource for scholars to live, study, and work together here at Harvard. It's one of the great centers for the study of religion in the world, and just celebrated its 50th anniversary. Have a chance to visit classes, learn more about ministry preparation, and find out about admissions and financial aid in applying and funding. So I'd like just to take a few moments of your time to highlight some of the things I believe makes HDS unique. Why Harvard? Why Harvard Divinity School? So here are 10 reasons you might want to consider in joining us. The first is why not? How could you resist us? So that's it. Thank you. The second, these are all two words. No, they're not all two words. The second is Harvard, as you know, is America's oldest university. Not quite as old as I'm always proud to tell people as the university I graduated from in Scotland, St Andrews, which has just celebrated its 600th anniversary. But Harvard is pretty old and one of the great universities of the world. It's an extraordinary place. The Divinity School not only has its own rich history and traditions, but we're situated in a university city of extraordinary size, range, scope, research and scholarship. 10 schools and a major research institute. There's always something happening here. There's too much happening here. It'll drive you crazy at times. We're also members of the Boston Theological Institute, which the Divinity School then is part of this federation of other schools that teach religion here in the greater Boston area. So the course options this will give you is really extraordinary. The Divinity School courses themselves, then you can look at what's available in wider Harvard, and then look at what's available in wider Boston Theological Institute. I can't think of another city in the world with the same density of courses and scholarship in religion as Boston. It really is a remarkable place. And I know from hosting student breakfasts that our students just love the course opportunities that this situation delivers. So it's just infinitely expanding pools of choice. Third, you will have access to one of the world's great library systems. 17 million volumes and counting. So you'll not get to read them all. Some of you might. And this is a great resource for teachers and students alike. I hear the comment often from our faculty, students, and alumni that our libraries and the treasures that one can find in them is one of the greatest resources at Harvard. And I've certainly found that as a teacher. I've taught in a number of institutions. And in some of them, we've had to devise this very sophisticated rotas to make sure we weren't teaching the same subjects at the same time because the library resources simply wouldn't cope with it. The resources here really are extraordinary, and it makes it a terrific opportunity both for scholars like me and students that you really can set students out on research papers or term essays, knowing that if they can't find it here, they probably can't find it anywhere. So it's easy to underestimate that, actually. It really is a tremendous resource that you will enjoy when you get here. Not only our own library here in Andover, but also Widener and many of the other subject libraries at Harvard. Fourth, you will come to an already diverse and eclectic place, and we would love it to be even more diverse. So come and leave your own mark at HDS. You'll come to a place that takes religious pluralism seriously in a world that really needs it. I sometimes say on these occasions that I was born and grew up in Belfast and went to the local university just as the Troubles started in 1969, 1970. I think we could have done with a lot more religious understanding and pluralism in that situation, which might have saved us a lot of grief and pain. We're in the lucky position to have distinguished faculty members with expertise in 5 of the world's great religious traditions: Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Judaism, and in indigenous traditions in different parts of the world, people who work on native traditions in Australia, West Africa, Mesoamerica. So we have an extraordinary range, I think, of teaching. I think probably unparalleled in the United States in terms of the range and scope of expertise in world religious traditions. America's world-famous Religious Pluralism Project was started here at Harvard under the leadership of my colleague Dana Eck, and continues to thrive here. Fifth, you will come to a place with a distinguished faculty who are at the forefront of their subjects and disciplines. We've recently appointed a new faculty member in American Religious History and in Ministry Studies. We're currently working on finalizing 2 senior appointments, one in American Religious History and another in Religion and Society. We have a search open for a position in theology, which we hope will come to a successful conclusion later this year. And we're rebuilding our ethics program step by step. Every year we also have visiting professors from all over the United States and the world come to HDS to teach and do their research. So it is a little bit of a door of entry for people all over the place to come and work here. Sixth, you will enter a culture in which successful students are self-guided and self-directed. Come and be prepared to knock on doors, waking us up, badger your professors, celebrate your achievements, and prepare seriously for what you want to do next. We have the resources at your disposal. Seventh, whatever the program you choose, we have a very strong record of placing our students, whether in field ed programs in the United States and beyond, or in America's top doctoral programs in all of the subject areas that we teach. Eighth, HDS has a vigorous alumni network. Check out videos online in which former alumni talk about their time at HDS, their career paths, which sometimes led them towards unforeseen and wonderful directions. Or join our alumni events all over the United States. Just within the last 2 weeks, we had an exciting event in collaboration with my colleague, Dean David Elwood from the Kennedy School at the museum in Washington, D.C., where in collaboration with the State Department, we had a panel discussion on the topic of religion and politics in a world of conflict. This was actually hosted by 2 HDS alums, Secretary Kerry's senior advisor on religious issues, and Charles Haynes, who is the director of the museum in Washington. So our alums do move out into really extraordinary and exciting places. At the end of this week, we will have, I'm catching a train later today, for events in New York. Professor Karen King, of whom you've undoubtedly heard, will speak at the Harvard Club of New York on Was Jesus Married? Early Christian Controversies over Marriage, Celibacy, and Salvation. And Professor Stephen Prothero of Boston University and I will explore religious literacy, what's at stake, with a group of American business and public policy leaders in New York City. Ninth, HDS is committed to understanding how religion plays out in the wider world. Of all 10 graduate schools at Harvard, we have the highest percentage of courses that touch on international themes and issues. And that is also reflected in our faculty and student body. It is an extraordinarily diverse and international group of people. Even this accent wasn't minted in the United States. I don't think it was minted anywhere, but certainly not the United States. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, you'd be coming to a school with a thriving intellectual culture and a commitment to high-level service. Highlights of this semester alone include our annual Graduate Student Conference on Ways of Knowing, which is the largest graduate student conference on religion in the United States. We had a wonderful preview performance of the new musical Witness Uganda, winner of the 2012 Richard Rogers Award for Musical Theatre. We have a lecture coming up next week by N.T. Wright, ex-Bishop of Durham, now research professor at St. Andrews, on his new book, Paul and the Faithfulness of God. And then later on in this month, we will have a panel on interfaith dialogue with the title Religions and Peace, the work of multi-faith collaborations in building sustainable peace. Does the university have a contribution? And on that panel, we will have the Dean of the Law School, Martha Minow, 2 leaders of major UN agencies, and again, Sean Casey, who is a senior advisor in the State Department. So those are 10 reasons. There are many others, and I hope you'll get a feel today just for the extraordinary richness, not only of the Divinity School, but of the surrounding Harvard environment. I really do hope you decide to apply to us. We would love to have you bring your unique and special gifts here to add something additional to what is already a very special community. So thanks for your time and attention. I can take some questions if you have some for a few minutes or so. Any questions on my 10 propaganda points? They're all true. Yes?
I think I can project. Am I doing well enough?
Yeah.
So you've said 10 reasons why we should come here.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing about HDS?
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. I think my favorite thing about HDS really is the student body and what happens to them after they leave. One of the special things I get to do in a job that sometimes can seem like a lot of things happening is to speak to our alums and supporters and donors. And it's an extraordinary group of people. If you look at those videos online of what people get up to after they leave here, it's astonishing, just the range of things they do. So I have this deep conviction that what happens at HDS makes the world a better place. That's a grand thing to say. And I do believe that, I've heard a number of our alums recently. We have these Divinity dialogues where alums come and speak about their lives and what difference HDS made to them and what they're doing now and how what they're doing now relates to their student experience. These are deeply moving occasions. I mean, people really do get their lives thought through, directed, and onto extraordinary things. So this is a dangerous place for you folks. If you come here, be prepared to be a little unsettled, but also to move into extraordinary things. So that's my favorite thing. I mean, what gets me up in the morning is that sense that there are extraordinary people here, and not only here, but they will be extraordinary people, even more extraordinary people when they leave here and get out into what they want to be doing. Great question. Any other questions? Yes, there's a...
Thank you, Dean Hempton. You mentioned earlier in your remarks about the ethics department being expanded a little bit more. I was wondering if you could just elaborate on that, sir. Sure.
It's, I guess, a little bit hard for me to speak very directly because these are appointments that were... but one of the senior people that I hope we'll be able to make an announcement on very soon is an ethics specialist. We have recently acquired two really large endowments, one to promote religion and business ethics, another will be the promotion of ethics more generally understood. So we're committed to, I certainly feel strongly in my meanderings around the university, whether it's talking to Kennedy School deans or the law school or the business school, that the rest of the university wants us to connect with them. And the area that they most want us to connect with them on is ethics. So we know we've got a ways to go to really put together what we hope will be the best ethics program in the country. But we're moving steadily towards that. And I wish I could say more, but some of these things are a little delicate at the moment. Thank you.
Good morning, Dean. Even in your profession as the Dean of the Faculty of the Harvard's Divinity School, how has Harvard Divinity School influenced your life and strengthened your beliefs in God?
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. That is a great question. I think the thing I would say to that is that I grew up in a situation where there were actually two pretty opposing religious blocs, Protestants and Roman Catholics. There were, of course, many different traditions within those, but that's how it shaped up. And as those blocs developed, they also acquired a particular political culture, which were mutually incompatible and led to pretty serious consequences. What I've really discovered in coming to the United States, but especially in coming to the Harvard Divinity School, is just the extraordinary pluralism of American religious life, and the way that this country, partly because of the separation of church and state, and the fact there is no religious establishment and no coercion in matters of religion, has created a culture, I think, of remarkable pluralism, diversity, and at its best, understanding. Now, there have been moments when this country has not lived up to its best aspirations. We've had bouts of anti-Catholicism, anti-Semitism. We've had slavery. We've had some anti-Islamic sentiment expressed in more recent times. But over the long haul, those things tend not to dominate the culture. Over the long haul, we find a way of managing those differences. And I think one of the extraordinary things about the Divinity School, and this has made a big impact on my own life, is just seeing how that can be done in a peaceful way. Having spent a great deal of my life watching it happen in a very unpeaceful way. So I think that would be my strongest answer to your question. I mean, I could talk at length about my own particular research interests, but that would probably bore everyone in the room. But at some stage, I'd like to do that. But is that an answer to your question that works for you? Yeah. Any?
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Women in Divinity Studies program and the Visiting Scholars?
Yeah, I'd be delighted to tell you more about that. It's one of my absolute favorite programs. In fact, tonight, when I leave you, we will be going to New York City to honor one of the women who really pioneered this, someone called Connie Buchanan. So I think the best way, when I walked into my dean's office last summer to take up my position, there were 4 photographs on the wall of HDS faculty, 1922, 1960, 1955, 1969, 1979. The first 2 photographs are all white men. Now, you look at the photograph in this of our faculty now, or look at this room, and you know that something really important has changed. One of the really big important things that has changed is the number of women we have on our faculty, and this wonderful Women's Studies and Religious program, which each year brings 5 outstanding scholars to the Harvard campus to work on their research and finish off a book project. They also agree to teach 1 course for us over the year. So over the years of the existence of this program, if you multiply the number of years by the number of scholars, it's a huge number of people have been through the Harvard campus. And those people have really shaped the study of women in religion in the United States and beyond, because increasingly we have people coming from different parts of the world. So each of these fellows gives a lecture, a public presentation. These are really superb occasions. I had the last book I wrote was revolutionized by one of those presentations. I was stuck, like completely stuck. So this is a great program, and I think if you do come, I think you would love to be associated with it. It brings extraordinary women through our campus each year, who then leave and do extraordinary things as well. Any other questions? Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you for sharing with us today. So you touched on earlier the role of religious pluralism within crisis and conflict. And I was wondering, how do you think the role of an institution like HDS is in mediating actions for peace and kind of facilitating a more peaceful and just world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we did have a student town hall a week ago on diversity and how we deal with it here and how we think about it, which I think was a great occasion. You know, it's just a free discussion where everyone can bring to the table their concerns, their experiences, and what they'd like to see us do better. In terms of actual peacemaking, I've thought quite a bit about how we could do this better. I mean, some of the events we've tried this year, one of this museum event on religion and conflict in the world order, in a sense that, that there is someone in the State Department educated here who knows about wider things about religion and the world order. We have an event specifically around the theme of religion and peacemaking. I think it's December 2nd, where we will have this very distinguished panel of people from the UN and from the law school and from other places to come and help us think through that very question. How can universities or divinity schools be more useful in using the resources of religion to make peace? Because we hear a lot about the other side. The media is saturated with how religion promotes conflict or violence, and I've seen that at first hand. I know how that works. So the point of this gathering is really to reverse the question: what resources are there in religious traditions for peacemaking? And there are resources in religious traditions for peacemaking. And part of our job, I think, in a divinity school like this is to make sure that those resources get more mobilized than the counter resources for making religion a source of conflict. So, I'd love to have students come here with a strong interest in this. There's open doors at Harvard to talk about this. So, other Harvard schools are more interested in religion after 9/11 and with the events of the past decade. So we have a really, I think, important opportunity to have a voice. Thank you.
Dean Hempton,
Yeah.
This year's Diversity and Exploration program cohort is the largest it's ever
Yes.
been.
Yes.
And it's in its 7 years of existence. And yesterday we heard that it was mostly your doing that you allowed extra students to come and join this year's program. So I just really wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thanks, but this is, yeah. Thank you so much. But that had much more to do with the people sitting here, actually. But but one of the pleasures of being a dean is that every now and again you get a chance to put resources towards a great idea, and this is a great idea. Thank you. Time for one more? Or up here? Oh, great. Yeah, sorry, I'm pointing in one direction.
Good morning. Thank you so much for coming out and speaking with us today. As a member of DivX this year, we've been told a lot of great things about Harvard Divinity School, and you've told us a number of good things about Harvard Divinity School. My question is, in your honest opinion as Dean of the faculty, is there anything negative or anything that's really different about Harvard that can stand out in a different way as compared to other divinity schools?
No, there's nothing negative. But what was your other question? No, thank you for that. I think all educational institutions are works in progress. So we want to be a more diverse school where I think we've made extraordinary strides when you look back at what the situation was like 50 years ago. But there's more to do. I think that there are all kinds of areas of inquiry we need to deepen and get a better handle on. I was very struck recently, for example, that in order to prepare for this museum trip to Washington, I actually went to the bookstore and just grabbed about 15 or 20 books on religion and conflict in the world order and skim-read them, especially Arab Spring, Middle East, and all of that. And what I really learned from that was how ignorant I really was, despite a lifetime of somewhat engaged reading. To be honest, there were some subjects that I read about that I probably wouldn't have gotten better than a C+ on an essay if I'd had to write about it. So there's always more to be doing and striving for. I would certainly not speak negatively about any other divinity school in the United States. There's lots of extraordinary institutions doing wonderful things, so and that's great. You know, we're not out to undermine any of that. You know, I think what you would get unusually at Harvard is one, that you're part of a really giant world-class university. And that does make a difference to what is available on campus and in courses. And I think that BTI is also extraordinary. I know there are other federations of theological schools in some other parts of the country, but I'm not sure any is quite as rich as this one in terms of you know, the range of religious traditions that are there, and the quality of the institutions that are in that federation. So I think there are extraordinary resources here, sometimes frighteningly extraordinary. I mean that. You know, there are times when it just seems overwhelming and a little scary. You know, you look at thousands of courses, you look at giant libraries. So in a way, but in terms of negativity, I don't think so. There's nothing that is being hidden or is under a rock or something. I mean, you come and just look and see how well it sits with you as a place. Is that an answer to your question? Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Look, thanks so much. They're a great question.